J Design. I lead our global healthcare practice, and I'm a hospital architect. So I'm here to tell you that this ain't your grandma's hospital. And to think about it, what I want to focus on here with my partner John is about value and collaboration. So each year, this is how much money the average family spends on healthcare. This is how much that each hospital average, certainly a lot more here in California, spends. This is the total amount spent on hospital construction per year, and this is what we're spending in healthcare in America today. So the big question is, I mean, everybody likes value, but how do we know that we are spending the right amount for the right answers? And how do we know that we're getting the best value for what we're paying for? So we have 3 clients when we're designing a healthcare facility. Number one, patients, and we think about what they want, and we know they want an integrated care, they want it to be humane, they want to have great access, and they want it to be responsive. They want to know they're going to get a surgery, nothing's going to fail. They want to know if they need to know where to go and look up something or understand something, they're going to get the right answer. Our next client are the clinicians, and they want a lot of stuff too, and it's really important. They want their building and the way they're going to experience it to be personalized to what they need. It needs to be flexible because it's going to change, and they know that. They also want it to be high performance. I mean, they need the reliability of everything that they need for when they practice. And God forbid that it's a healthy work environment for them, that they actually have daylight, that they actually have space that's healthy, and they have access to those things that make it a pleasant place to work with their colleagues. And then we have the ultimate client. This is the one that's paying our bills. This is the one that's determining, you know, from a strategic standpoint, what this project has to be about. And it's a tough place to be because there's a schedule, there's a lot of money. They want to make sure that we're talking to the right people, but not too many because it's going to slow it down. And we might be doing something very strategic that not a lot of people should know about initially, but then we're going to bring them on. So this is the guy that, or woman that's paying the bills. But all 3 of them are our clients, and the patient is the most important client for us. So in our industry, this is how much money is spent a year in the United States on new hospitals. And everybody's trying to do the right thing when they're designing it. But I have to tell you that it's full of a lot of waste, because what we're trying to do is to be predictive about what is needed. We don't know exactly how to do that, so there's a lot of trial and error. And what we do as designers is we try to figure out what's the best thing to do for the needs that we're trying to solve. And so why is it so tough and why is it so wasteful? The big thing is that they are so complex. I mean, I just outlined the number of users and clients that we have, but there's more to it than that. If you think about what you need to do and understand when you're designing an office building, it's, I'm not going to say super simple, but there are supplies, there are the employees, and there are the customers. And it varies more or less between whatever you're doing. But if we think about a hospital, as designers and working with you as our clients, the patients, the families, always changing. The providers are complex. Medication delivery is always changing. Supplies, how do you deal with all that? Information, I can't even go there with how much that's affecting what we do. The equipment, instrumentation, technology deserves its own slide. We're designing operating rooms where technology from outside companies are part of the medical team. We're actually interviewing them. It's changing every day. They can't keep up. Plus all the regulatory environments, California alone with all the earthquake requirements that we have to meet, discoveries that are happening and incubating within your hospitals, and oh, by the way, they're 24/7. So it's a much more complex building. Not only that, we have our own language. We are nerds. We do things completely different. We make up words. The things that we're going to throw at you when we're sitting down with you, you're not going to be able to understand half of them. We kind of like it that way, you know, kind of in our own world, but it's inevitable. And we are sometimes trying to describe these things to you and able to design this complex building that's going to serve all your needs. So we have to deal with being able to deliver this complex project. It's super important to us that we get all the input that we need to be able to design and build what is going to serve all 3 of those customers and their families in the community. And number one, that patient. Oftentimes, we don't get the kind of input and the vast numbers of people that we need to understand it. And that's what this conference has been all about engagement. For us to do our job, for us to deliver the best value, we need more of that input. And the way that we do it today is through models, it's through some digital 3D, it's through trying to describe it, it's through plans, and it's not good enough. What we're seeing is sort of this cataclysm between the complexity of the hospitals, the complexity about how we do our design and how we do our models. And don't get me wrong, I mean, MBBJ, we're one of the leaders. We have a digital design practice. It's in our office. We are writing our own software. We are engaging into all kind of measurements and how we're going to make sure our buildings are efficient. But it's just not good enough to be able to get the input that we need. So, ta-da, enter VR. And we decided that even though we kind of have our act together with our digital practice, we needed something more. So I'm going to introduce you to Joan SanGiovanni. He is actually the CEO of a software development company that we incubated in our office to be able to address this problem.
Awesome.
So,
thanks, Joan. It is true that hospitals by their nature are not only some of the most complex building types in terms of stakeholder input, but they're actually one of the most complex architectural or design projects in general. There are many, many multi-billion-dollar industries that are centered around complex conversations around 3D data sets. But architecture is one of the more complex, which is one of the reasons why we were energized about the prospect of learning together with one of the #1 digital architecture firms on the planet to really understand how do you manage a large stakeholder project with VR technology. So first, let me start by setting the stage and describing kind of virtual reality in the broadest sense. Everybody has seen VR, has read about VR. Many of you have probably experienced VR. And the easiest way to summarize the VR landscape this 5 minutes is that there's generally 3 buckets. At one end of the spectrum is the sort of first to the party, which is Oculus and Morpheus and Vive and systems like this that usually have kind of a heavyweight HMD, a head-mounted display. The computing is done by an external PC, typically, with a fast kind of video game-style video card. And then there's usually an umbilical that tethers the user to that computer, and then you're absolutely tracked inside that room. That's, most people think about VR, when you look at a stock photo for VR, that's what you see. And those systems are amazing experiences. They're very immersive, but they're also super solitary. It's really about one person, and you have to pass the headset to give that experience to multiple people, which is not super effective and kind of gross. So at the other end of the spectrum, we have AR, augmented reality, things like HoloLens, Magic Leap, others. Still kind of in the science phase, it's early, but the beautiful thing about AR is they're transparent lenses so that you can see the world around you, and you can also project digital images into the real world in a way that's very convincing. They say pinned into the real world. We call that MR, or mixed reality. Those systems are super exciting, and of course they're just now coming out of the lab, but it's still quite early. Then there's this third category, which is quite interesting to us, which is mobile VR. It turns out that most of our current generation smartphones are a really good platform for virtual reality. They have high-resolution displays, high-performance 3D graphics capabilities, accelerometers, magnometers, all the things that you need for virtual reality. And with a simple little binocular display system, you can actually split the screen in half and give each eye its own respective display. So many of you have seen Google Cardboard or Gear VR. These are examples of mobile VR systems. And for being able to capture a large amount of input from a lot of users, that's what we prefer. One way to kind of frame what we're endeavoring to do is we're trying to nail that midpoint between the in-person meetings around an architectural design process. And meetings are wonderful. They're collaborative and productive, but limited participation based on logistical complexities, and even distributed meetings are limited and take a long time to put together. So what ends up happening is lots of people engage in a complex architectural design process using email. And email, of course, invites broader participation, and importantly, responses are captured and documented. But the worst way to participate in a 3D design process is with a PDF attachment, right? So we believe that virtual reality, and specifically our platform, Visual Vocal, has the potential to be able to nail that midpoint, be at once more inclusive than a meeting, but also just more enjoyable than an email. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of how that will enact change. So our current design process is, today, before VR, you schedule an internal meeting. It takes a while to get people together. You do the internal design review. You finalize the preliminary drawings. Then you schedule a design review meeting with the stakeholders to meet with provide exits and repeat. And this cycle time is way too long for the velocity of a complex architectural project like a billion-dollar hospital. Well, with virtual reality, we have the potential to be able to pulse out an immersive experience so that many people can participate at their leisure, at their desk or in their pajamas, on their own phone using virtual reality. Not only can they see the visualization, but they can actually hear the voice of the architect in their ears who's providing commentary and input. And even variations, ABC variations, can change before their eyes. And we see that to be incredibly powerful. So, rather than just starting with 1 to 2 user groups of providers and patients, what if we could actually use virtual reality to engage a virtually endless group of participants who could all be exposed to that, weekly or monthly heartbeat of design decisions, participate by providing their inputs through multiple choice or in some cases even voice input, and then have that exchange happen with so much more velocity because unlike a meeting, it is asynchronous, which means that it can be communicated whenever people have leisure. And that's the real thing that we've spent time investing. Another beautiful thing about virtual reality is it breaks down the sort of geographic boundaries. So people can engage in any region at their leisure, and it really drives faster participation. So in summary, we believe that, that virtual reality, we think, will drive better collaboration between the architectural firm and its clients. It'll save tremendous time and money by reducing a number of meetings, and also makes the design process more inclusive and more fun, which is important to get people to want to engage. So now I will attempt to do a live quick VR demo, and some people find it interesting. Usually when you sign up on a VR process, you will get delivered a very large box with a single user, with a single headset, and you have to don that and interact with it. We actually engage users in groups of 10 or 100 or 1,000, and a 10-user pack, a 10 VR headset pack, looks like this. And each one of these is a little binocular viewing device. The sound effects are very important. And then you literally just take this and you snap it on your phone, and you have a virtual reality sort of viewer. So I'll show you kind of what that looks like. So I'm going to switch to this display.
If you're excited about this, put our tweet information up there. Let the world know.
So I'm just going to attach this. We support iOS and Android. And I'm going to take this HDMI so that you can see what I'm seeing. Okay, there we go. So this is an example of a spherical pre-render, which I'm going to place down just so there's not quite as much jitter. A spherical pre-render of a hospital room that was done, just earlier this week. And the beautiful thing about using spherical pre-renders is that every one of the tool chains in the design review process, so Revit, Rhino, SketchUp, CATIA, whatever, they can all generate stereoscopic spherical renders. So I can actually look around the space in VR, and I can kind of look at the patient room. I can actually teleport out into the hallway, and now I'm looking at the hallway, right? So I can navigate around the space. I don't know if you guys remember the 1990s video game Myst, but it's navigation very much in that fashion. But what's even cooler than that, I'm actually going to step back out to another example. And what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you a complex ABC variant decision. Like if you're looking at, this is an interior space of a very large building, as you can see. So you get this really good sense of scale. And you can actually, not only are there hot spots, you can see in peripheral radar, there's different hot spots that are scattered around the environment. Those are examples of decisions that the architectural team would like to talk to you about, right? So if I switch down here to the stakeholder mode, and I drill into that hotspot, you can see I can actually hear the voice of the architect.
Okay, now you're standing inside the atrium. We're about the 20.
And you can even see where he was looking when he was talking. So that's Ryan Mullinex, the lead designer of this project.
I'll show you two options here. One
really dramatic NBBJ project here.
Amount of transparency and ability to see around the atrium. You can see here it's completely open. I look up into the space. I can see everything happening above me and below me without any issue. I can actually see down.
Yes.
As you're probably well aware. And the elevators that will be moving up to our left at all times.
Now watch this.
Option 1, a complete open, transparent atrium. The second option
so now, in VR, this sort of screen just appeared. 45 stories of, sort of up and down
still see my colleagues standing across
the space. So it's a very, very immersive way to communicate. And then as an architect, turn that off. So as a stakeholder, not only can I hear that feedback, but I can also asynchronously either vote on which variants I like more, or I can asynchronously communicate back upstream. So we think that this method of architectural collaboration has the potential to really dramatically change the efficiency of how decisions are made in VR, and we're very excited to partner with NBBJ on this method. Thanks very much for your time.